The holiday of Passover is all about freedom and independence, kind of like Independence Day. But we're not celebrating freedom with barbecues and fireworks. We read the text of the Haggadah, a text that spends a lot of time talking about how awful slavery was. What's the deal with that? Why can't we celebrate a holiday just focusing on some awesome miracles, on what freedom means to us thousands of years later? The Haggadah is trying to teach us something very important. In order to understand the truly awesome nature of the redemption from Egypt, we need to first understand the tragedy and the suffering that the people of Israel went through. What would you say is the worst thing that the Egyptians did to the Israelites? It actually wasn't slavery. I'm talking about something much more painful. The Egyptians ripped the newborn Israelite babies out of the arms of their mothers and drowned them in the Nile. Pharaoh was worried that the Israelites were too different from the Egyptians, and that at their growing birth rate, they would one day become a threat. And so Pharaoh decided to commit genocide. But genocide is not for the faint-hearted. It's a very messy and bloody ordeal. Every genocidal dictator in history had to deal with what to do with the bodies. For Pharaoh, the Nile was the answer. The babies would be thrown into the water, and there would never be a trace of wrongdoing. The Nile would just continue to look like its usual self, glistening in the sun, flowing along its regular course. And the whole nation of Egypt was in on it. When the Israelites would come crying to the Egyptian authorities, the authorities could deny it. What's your evidence? Do you have any witnesses? For the Israelites, the night would be full of anguish. But in the morning, everything would look normal. And, as if the crime weren't bad enough, nature itself would help cover it up. Until the first plague. Something miraculous happens. The water turns to blood. The Nile finally reveals Egypt's darkest secrets. You thought that your crimes went unnoticed. Now, nature itself reveals your cruelty. God shows that He knows what they've done, and that there are no more secrets. It's the beginning of justice. Justice isn't only about punishing the aggressor. It's also about compassion for the victim. The experience of being oppressed and being broken down is not something that just goes away over time. One of the most tragic effects of abuse is the suspicion felt by the abused that they actually deserved what happened. There's a kind of weird logic behind it. The victim feels so much pain, but life seems so normal for the perpetrator. No one knows what happened, and he just goes on with his life. Maybe it's all just happening in my head. That's why abuse needs to be redeemed. Justice becomes a source of solace. Justice helps the victims see that they're not crazy. It wasn't enough for God to just free the people of Israel. He had to redeem what was done to them too. And when the water of the Nile turned to blood with the first plague, God showed the people that they're not crazy, that God knows the terrible crimes that were committed against them. It was the beginning of compassion, the beginning of empathy. God showed them that they're not alone. The Haggadah and the Exodus are full of the secrets of our freedom. This year, as you sit down at your Seder, take a closer look at the stories that you've heard since you were a child. You may be surprised at how moving they are thousands of years later. We believe that the Torah is a guidebook that has important lessons for how we live our lives today. At Aleph Beta, we use animated videos to help the Torah come alive. The ideas in this video are just the tip of the iceberg. To uncover more Torah secrets, check us out at alephbeta.org.